The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mind Garden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. And welcome to the Sandy and Toddcast, Season 2, Episode 3. Sandy, another great audio cast in store.
I can't wait for this one, Todd. This one is a little bit of everything. Scary, intriguing, and even hopeful in the end. It's a great story.
It really is. Stand by. Possessed. The story of David Williams is next on the Sandy and Toddcast.
What, you beautiful souls. I'm so excited to have this platform where I can share my gifts, the things that I do, what we need to do as a collective energy to really step into soul's path. Reiki and healing and alignment. Oh my goodness, these are all so very important in what we do. I have a daily podcast that I do. You can find me on Spotify and Anchor for your daily vibes, your energies as a collective unit, right? You can also find me on my Facebook page where I really go more in depth with it, but you can find me at Mystic Karma by Victoria.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Season 2, Episode 3, the Sandy and Toddcast is on. Hey, Sandy.
Hey, Todd. I'm so excited. Third episode, and this is going to be one of the best interviews that I think we've done.
Well, it's different, because I think a lot of the interviews we do are really actually good. Dennis was a really great interview, but this one is something that I think shows a side to the paranormal that not all of us have connection with, and we actually do have connection with it.
Yes, and this one kind of scares you a little bit. It intrigues you. You want to know more, and it makes you really, really think. And that's why I love this interview so much.
If you're listening to this podcast, we invite you to go back and listen to some of our other podcasts from Season 1. Get caught up on the things you may have missed this season. And don't forget to find us on Facebook and check out some of our live casts with the videos that we have out there. In fact, this video is available to you. If you're listening to this podcast right now, you can actually see the video of this interview with David Williams. So go back, binge watch us, binge listen to us, become a member of our group too.
Yeah, we have a great group. It's called Stay Weirdos, the Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast. All you have to do is ask to be admitted. It's a great place. It's a really great space, a safe haven for people to come together, not be judged, voice their thoughts, their opinions, their stories, and ask questions. And it's all judgmental, and that's why I love it so much. And be sure to like our Facebook page, The Sandy and Toddcast, because that's where you can get all of these great videos. We call them live casts, and they are just so interesting, and we have so much fun on them.
We really, really do. So
yeah.
Let me tell you about David Williams really quick, okay? David and I worked together on a project for a movie and TV show project, and we were investigating various locations, and we were at this particular location one night doing the actual investigation, and some odd stuff took place, and this is the very first time that David Williams speaks about what happened that night a few years ago during that investigation.
And when he tells this story, Todd, you can just feel for him. You can feel the emotion. You can feel it in his voice. Watching him, that's why it's so important to go back and watch the video as well. You can see the emotion coming from David as he tells this story. And it's just so interesting and something that most of us don't even think about. Ghost hunting is not just fun. Ghost hunting is a lot of other things as well.
It's a lot of responsibility is what it is.
Sure is.
Season 2, Episode 3 of the Sandy and Toddcast audiocast, Possessed, the story of David Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us on the program to talk about his paranormal story is David Williams.
Hey!
There he is. Look at him, right?
Hi, David.
Pole dancing. pole
And-
dancing. Really?
And thick poles as well.
Thick pole
Thick pole
dancing.
dancing. I mean, there's a total difference. You really have
Really?
to be you have to be eloquent to do thick pole dancing.
It's hard to do with a 5'6" frame.
And that's why
Right,
you were
yeah.
so good at it too. And people really thought, man, this guy's got it going on. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I noticed that you didn't show any of your own pictures in those.
Yeah, he did.
Well, how do you take? But here's the problem: how do you take your own picture back then? There were no selfies.
Yeah, that's true. I guess.
You know, I think there was one of me in front of a mirror, and I was like, I'm not
I'll
gonna
find
use that
some
one.
old pictures of Todd, and we'll put
For
them up.
sure.
Well,
For
it was just
sure.
fun to see some baby face kids trying to
Unbelievable,
make this
right?
work. That was our first investigation.
Unreal. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It really was. And actually, we had a ton of cool stuff happen. Like the first time that I remember getting some real like bang-o evidence at an investigation. So
Yeah, no, that was a really good one. It was a great way to start out that series of misadventures.
Exactly. This is exactly right. So David and I go back to about 2012, and we started working together on a project for someone else, and we were investigating and locations and stuff like that. So we didn't see each other all the time, and we haven't actually talked in a long time. Occasionally a phone call or a message and stuff like that. But you stay connected with those people because you're experiencing something that you've never really experienced in life. You know,
Right.
And so those times are kind of special, and you hang on to those moments.
Yeah, and you kind of become family. You know, a couple
Absolutely.
of us were pretty close. You know, I talked to a couple of the other people pretty frequently. You know, and you celebrate their wins in their life when they happen. So
Absolutely. So we wanted you on today because you've had experience in investigating, and you've had a specific experience that didn't turn out very well. And I really felt like that story, it was time for that story to be told, because I don't even know the whole story. And I'm not sure if you've ever told anyone the whole story. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell what happened and really use it as a teaching tool for people who are out there with their K2 meters and their recording devices and their, whatever the hell they've got out there. This is some real stuff you're dealing with.
yes, it is. This will be a very cautionary tale because as long as you know me, I'm a pretty even-keeled person. I don't get rattled too easily. We're kind of in the same mindset as far as how paranormal works. I come at things as a realist, try to find a simple solution to whatever is going on and try to debunk whatever whatever is happening.
Right.
And it helps that I have some construction background and stuff like that to kind of know how old buildings work and what the creaks and quirks are.
Right. What got you interested in paranormal? I know there's a story there.
Really, there's not. You start watching the shows on TV and it's like, man, that'd be fun to do. And then I saw this posting they were looking for help, and I shot a message over and said, hey, I am pretty good with audio and doing that kind of stuff. If you need help, let me know. And one thing led to another, and we're there.
So you were essentially going into this with no previous paranormal experiences.
No, I wasn't even planning on doing the paranormal end of it. I was just trying to be a background person, be an audio tech or a cameraman or something like that.
Wow.
Nothing in front of the camera, but it ended up that I ended up in front of the camera.
Well, here's the thing: when you're behind the scenes and you're pole dancing, we realize that the camera is for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you did it to yourself.
I do. Yeah. The another side of me comes out when the camera is on. Yes.
For some reason, I thought I remembered some story that connected you with either a father or a grandfather or something like that. I don't remember.
So there is a part of that. So my dad passed away in 2008. He died suddenly in his sleep of a heart attack, and I never really got a chance to give a proper goodbye. Last conversation we had, and actually this is good because this will also tie into this story and how you should come into an investigation, like what your mindset should be. So, and this could get a little bit emotional, so bear with me.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
So he passed away in 2008. The last conversation I had with him I lied to him about finishing school.
Oh.
Mm.
So I never got to reconcile that. And now this is public. I know some of my family knows this, but this is public now. So that landed me with some trauma. The whole death experience is a trauma. You know, you don't think you would lose a parent in your mid 20s.
Right.
Right.
It was a whole, whole hard deal. And it definitely flipped everything on its head. And then a year later, I guess I'm giving you a little bit more background than you, but I'm going to, because this all plays into what I'm going to tell you about this tale. A year later, my mom had a major stroke in which she can't drive. Her speech is impaired. She has some physical ailments and that kind of stuff. So I ended up having to be a caregiver for her on the weekends, because I was working during the week. I would drive from, at the time I was living in Oshkosh, down to Kenosha, where I grew up and where she was living, on the weekends, and caregive, and then drive back and then work 410s and then come back. And I did that for about 6 months. And then I started doing less and less because we were getting more help into the house. And she ended up moving in with a cousin of mine in Madison. So that was a whole different deal. But at that time, the other thing was going on, this is also pre this investigation, I had a major alcohol problem, and ended that in 2010. And so that's been helpful to not have that on my back anymore. Yes. Also during that time, I had 2 suicidal ideation episodes where one landed me in the hospital. My wife at the time saved me that night, so always appreciative of that. She's always been my rock. Yeah. Anyway, all right, getting up to this. So before that whole summer, because that was July, when we did that investigation, a good 6 months or so before that, I had been working on trauma therapy, brain spotting. If you know what brain spotting is, it's a very intensive trauma care type stuff, and it leaves you. And basically, what you're doing is you're trying to peel the onion and get to the core of some of your trauma work.
Right.
But it leaves you pretty open.
It basically knocks those walls down a little bit, and you don't have that protection.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're breaking barriers as you go.
Yes.
And so your mind is a lot more open and more susceptible to some things.
Right.
And I didn't tell any of you guys that because it was very raw at the time, and I just didn't want that out in the open.
Right.
Because when at that time, when I was out and about with you guys, I would put on a pretty good facade of, everything's cool.
Absolutely. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. But nobody did, except for certain people in my life that needed to know these things. And so that night we went in, we're getting all set up and everything. And it's first session in was just a complete cluster. It was just it was a mess.
Yeah. I'll preface this by saying, so we were working on a project for someone else, and our jobs basically were to go in and investigate and see what happened. Pretty much. I mean, we would do some analysis and stuff like that of some of the audio and video and stuff like that. This location, which we're not going to tell you exactly the location, was a venue, however, where you would go see maybe movies or theater productions or music, live music, stuff like that. So it was a venue for entertainment, and that's the type of place that we were investigating for this.
Yeah, it was a pretty infamous venue.
Yep.
Pretty infamous. Yep. A lot of people know this venue. And yes, we're not going to mention it because that was the original reason why this story didn't come out in the first place, because the venue did not want us to tell this. That was the main reason. One of many reasons, but that was the main reason that was told to me.
Right.
So the first session was just a cluster, and I took it upon myself to take the lead and say, let's regroup, let's refocus. I want to go on stage with Todd and
we did this great performance. They brought out the poles.
Oh yeah, the polka.
Yeah,
they had polka music and the whole nine.
We both play drums, so we did a little, little
boy,
solo action there.
Yeah, it was great.
We went and investigated together.
So it was. So we set up this thing, and we were talking before. This was one of the only times that you and I actually did an investigation or a session together, solo. And to lay out the setup, because I think that's important too. On each side of the stage, I put a digital recorder, and then we sat in the middle in chairs, and then I believe we had a spirit box in front of us. And then we had, I can't remember who was actually in the camera, but we had somebody off stage on a camera.
Mm-hmm. I think it was Angela, and I think I had one other camera pointed out someplace.
Sure. Too. Yeah, you were kind of scanning the upper balcony.
Yeah,
I believe was what you were doing. So we're going through the session. It feels like a normal session. We're getting some creaks and maybe a little bit of shadow movement, and some things are popping up on the spirit box and yada yada. Felt really good though. Felt strong. I felt like we did a nice job of laying out. You and I don't come at it with any sort of malintent. We're always pretty even keel. I always thought of it as doing it like if I was a reporter for a newspaper and wanted somebody to tell their story, that was how I approached these particular sessions, just because it's
definitely with respect and understanding.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, of course. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this, and obviously a lesson in life is be respectful, no matter what you're doing in life, either paranormal investigating or meeting somebody on the street. Just be respectful, and I think that goes a long way on a lot of levels for a lot of things that would fix what's going on in the world today.
You're
Agreed.
Right. Yep.
Agreed.
Coming back. So we're going through this session. I make a couple of comments of, at the time, the other thing that was going on physically, I was recently, before this particular investigation, I had recently been diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic pain syndrome and chronic fatigue syndrome. So
something else I didn't know about.
Yes. I'm a very private person.
I guess so. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So I had some physical ailments going on. And at the time I'm a musician in life. I've been playing music since I was 11. I still play off and on now. I actually just recently joined a band again. So I'm trying to get back out on the road.
That's great.
It's been a lot of work, but we're there. So I make the comments of, because of this venue, it's a bigger venue. I had played a couple of bigger venues, but nothing of the prestige of this place. And I make the comment as I wish I could have played a venue like this before I had to hang it up. Was basically the gist of what I said. And I wish I had the audio clips here because they're stored on a drive. If we had a little bit more timing, I would have sent them to you just so you had them. But so we get through the session, and then the next session goes up. I start immediately going through audio because audio nerd, obviously. So I sit down at a table. I always brought a collapsible table, and I set my laptop and audio gear on.
He had everything. I mean, you saw that picture of all the doohickeys and the wires and stuff. I mean, the guy is just a genius when it comes to audio.
I was just doing my job and doing what I knew. That was just what it was. And that night it was a pretty pared down setup, just because we weren't doing the wireless mic setup. We were just doing just normal audio from whatever cameras and things like that. It was a pretty small rig, but I didn't bring much. I just brought like an interface that I could plug my headphones into and get my recorders dumped onto my laptop. And I ran a program, Logic, if you know what Logic is. That's what I use for all my recording projects.
It's kind of like the two tin cans, Sandy, just so you understand.
Okay,
it's very similar to that.
Yeah,
totally get it now.
If you want to nerd out, this is I'm giving you the equipment I'm using. So, So I start listening through this stuff, and I have on there the 2 recorders, and so they're panned to each side, so I know what's left, what's right, and so I'm listening through this stuff, and all of a sudden there's just stuff just keeps popping up, a lot of just chatter behind the scenes, and at the time I didn't really get a good view of it, just because I was immersed in it. I was like, yeah, we're getting stuff, this is exciting.
Right.
I'm getting blurps here and blurps there, and I'm showing Todd. It's like, dude, look at this. Can you hear this? What do you hear? This is what I hear, and I'm writing this stuff down, and I'm just like, oh, this is great.
So he's letting me listen, okay? And I'll be honest, I don't have the best ears for a lot of reasons, and a lot of it is, wearing headphones for work and all that kind of stuff. And so he'd say, what do you hear here? And I'd go, nothing. I don't hear anything. And then he'd go, well, listen for this right here. And I would hear it because I was listening for it. Now, we may not necessarily know exactly what it said, but a couple of them, we were pretty sure we knew what was being said.
Yes. And some of them were pretty graphic.
Yes, they were.
So I don't know how graphic I can get here, but it gets pretty graphic.
Yeah, I think people can pretty much sense what it probably was saying to us.
Yeah.
I do remember the one that went like, do you want to die? Because it reminded me of like a rock song.
Right.
Right. So we'll come back to that particular one later.
Okay.
Because that one is an important clip, because there's more to that I found later.
Great. And I'm just finding out about this now, Sandy.
Yeah. Well, it's not directed at you. It was directed at me.
Of course.
Yes. So, which also plays into the rest of this this particular investigation. So we're doing other investigations. We're going around the building. We're doing this other stuff. The second to last session we're doing, I'm up in the balcony with 2 people, and we're doing this thing, and I start just getting tired. Like, I can feel energy starting to drain out of me, and I'm just getting tired. It's like, man, and it was late. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was. I don't remember the timing, because again, once I hit this particular time period, I don't know what's going on.
I remember you coming down and just being like totally drained out.
Yeah, I was tired. Something took something out of me.
But you were really tired, but were you still thinking normally?
I was still cognizant of everything that was going on. Still cognizant of everything. And so they wanted to go right into this last session where we're all on stage, and we're going to do one last thing before we shut her down for the night. So they're setting up stuff. They're doing the stuff, and the stage. I don't know if you remember this, Todd. The stage had a piano in the back.
I don't remember that, but okay, I believe you.
There was
100%.
a piano sitting in the back of the stage, like on stage, but pushed to the back wall. And I sat down and just started playing a couple of notes, just a couple of things, because I dabble in piano. I'm not good at it, but
right.
I can make some chords and make it sound good. So I do a couple of things like that, and I grab a chair and I sit near the middle back, kind of about where a drum riser would be.
Right, exactly. That's a good point. Yep. Where the drummer would be sitting. Correct.
Yeah, drum riser would be, because that's my natural place to go, because I'm a drummer. That's what I do.
And we're kind of it's almost like a circle, if I remember properly.
Almost, but it's in a way.
But we're all kind of facing, toward the middle a little bit,
or out or looking out. I'm looking out into the chairs, and I'm sitting in this chair, and we start in this investigation. I'm starting to feel I'm still drained, because I came downstairs. I was like, man, I'm tired. It's like, all right, let's go. And I had a second where I was like, man, I shouldn't, but it's the end of the night. Let's just do it.
Yeah, it's that last, and you know this, Sandy, it's that last hurrah. Okay, folks, this is the last chance for us to get something for the production. Let's get up there. We got to get something, because we don't have anything. Right. We don't have anything yet. Yep.
Yeah. So that was a bad call on my part. I should have sat that one out. Anyway, I'm there anyway. I'm sitting in this chair, and we're doing this investigation. All of a sudden, I'm feeling like crap. I started having chest pains, and I'm just hurting. And all of a sudden, I wish we had the video for this because it's so sudden. I shoot out of my chair, go behind the chair, and start pacing back and forth. Now I'm starting not to lose control.
Okay.
Once I come out of that chair and move around, I start losing control. And I'm starting to see red. And I'm getting more and more pain. I'm starting to get angry, which I don't get angry often or easily. And I'm still pacing back and forth. And the lead was doing most of the questions. And I start bending over, keeling over, like, if you clutch your chest and you're leaning forward, I'm hurting. I was like, man, there's something going on here. I vocalize this, and some notice and some keep going. And then all of a sudden I see red, completely red. I don't see anything anymore. And I pop up and I shout something, which again, I can't really.
Right.
It was a "what the F do you want?"
Right.
As loud as I could go. And then I keel back over, and then I say, I gotta leave. And so I started beelining to the side of the stage, and I believe somebody asked if you wanted to bring a camera with, and I think I said no. Which, in hindsight, I wish I did, but I didn't have control. So I make a beeline off the stage. I going up the ramp, going to the back. I noticed the person that was there for the venue was there, and she saw me coming. And I yell, "Open the door," meaning I need to go outside. So she gets in front of me, opens the door. I don't break step. I just, she times it just right. She opens the door. I don't break step. I come outside and I sit down on the ground.
On the sidewalk, right out in front of the venue.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
In a busy downtown. And there's people looking at me. It's like, what's going on? And I know somebody came out from the crew. I don't know who it was. And I got up, turned around, and started walking down the street. Now, near this venue, there was a bridge with a river. I go up to the middle of the bridge. Again, not in control. Go up to the middle of the bridge. And I'm looking over the bridge into this river. And a voice in my head says, "Jump."
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Jump. Oh. So I immediately turn around, like just 180 right on the bridge. So my back is up against the railing. And I take a couple of breaths because I'm starting to kind of hopefully get a little bit of control back. It's a little less because I'm out of the venue, but it's still there. So I kind of collect myself a little bit and walk back into the venue. You guys are tearing down when I come back in, I believe.
Right. Yep.
And I start tearing down my stuff, and I'm still not feeling right. I'm out of it still, but I'm somewhat controlled, but somewhat not. And I come up to you and I say, "Man, I don't know what to do here. I don't want this to follow me home." And I believe, if I remember right, you said, "Go to the stage and do what you have to do." Were the words of wisdom from Todd. Go to the stage and do what you have to do. So I walk up back into the venue, walk down. I don't get on stage. I get in front of the stage. And I set the boundary of, you got me this time, but you're going to stay here. And I need to go. You're not going to follow me. You got me. We will part ways now, and you won't see me again. And so we finished packing up, and we're about to head out, and I'm heading through the door, and all of a sudden, everything lifts, and then I start talking a million miles an hour.
I remember that. Yeah, it was almost like I was like, is this guy on speed or something? Because it was really sudden. Like
I got everything back. Everything I was thinking of started coming out. It was it was right as we went through the threshold of the door. Everything lifted, and I just started talking like a maniac.
Gosh.
Started collecting myself again.
right.
And we're walking down the street, and I'm thinking to myself, it's like, what the hell just happened? And I'm shook, obviously.
Yeah.
Because I could have gone into a river that night.
Oh my
and
God.
So I get into my car and I drive home that night because the next day we're going on a family vacation
Yes.
up to the northern Wisconsin with my family. And usually after investigations, I would call my wife and say, hey, I'm on my way home. And she would ask, like, how did it go? And I'd say, yeah, it was great. We got this, and this. It was a lot of fun. That night I called her and she asked how things went. And I said, I don't want to talk about it right now. And we'll talk about it tomorrow when we're on the road. Very just straight deadpan, just like I just said it to you. And she's like, okay. And, she knows me to know that if something like that happens, she's not going to push me to talk about it.
Right.
So we get on the road and we're about, I would say 45 minutes out. My kids had fallen asleep, which I was waiting for so I can actually talk about this stuff because the last thing I need is them to ask questions. They don't want to know that their dad had an issue. And I started talking to her about this. I think I had a partial possession last night. And I tell the story as I know it. And I took my laptop on vacation with me because that had all my audio. And, I'm starting to recollect myself. And a couple days into the vacation at night when the kids are going to sleep, I go back on the laptop and start listening through stuff. And
I'm going to pause you for a second because I want to talk about that. I want to back up and tell that same bit of the story from my perspective because I watched this happen. So we're up on stage and we're doing our last hurrah. And for anybody who's wondering what happened to Sandy, I think she got a call from the pool boy and had to go out and take care of him. But I think her internet just quit on her for a second. She'll be back. So we're up on stage, and you're right. The investigation was going on, and it was going in an area that I'm never comfortable with. I don't like confrontational provoking.
Yes, it was starting to get provocative.
And it was show us now or come and see us. It was one of those things where we were pounding our fists to get something to do, whatever it was going to do. I don't like investigating like that because I think that's where we lose the respect for what we're dealing with.
Correct. I'm on the same page.
And I think, and that's when you say you were sitting in the chair, you were like this in the chair. You were kind of like bent over with your head down. Mm-hmm. And I knew you were tired, so I didn't think much about it because we were all kind of, you're beat and whatever. And so I didn't think much of it. But when you shot up and started pacing, the first thing that came to mind is what's going on with this guy? And I remember you saying something's not right or something to that effect, like I'm feeling angry or something like that. And all I could focus on was what's going on with David. We need to kind of take hold of what's going on here. Figure this out because one of our team members is having some sort of experience that we need to know more about. Mm-hmm. But it really wasn't necessarily acknowledged all the way through. Mm-hmm. You leave. I remember following you outside and seeing you sit on the concrete. And I came in, I'm like, I don't know what's going on with him. I'm like I'm seriously worried about him. I didn't know that that you were feeling like it was possession or anything like that. I didn't know. To me it was like, maybe he's having some kind of weird reaction with medication or you just don't know. Or maybe he had an actual experience with the paranormal that is off the charts. So I do remember saying to you, you need to do what you need to do. Like, go to the stage and say what you need to say, because, and I remember myself after what happened to you walking out that night going, you're not coming home with me. Whatever's here is staying here. You are never allowed to come discuss anything with me ever again. You're being left behind. So I do remember that. So from my perspective, I didn't know what the hell was going on, but I knew that should have been our prime focus, not for the project we were working on, but as human beings. I was worried about you as a person, as far as what was going on with you. So,
and you checked in with me afterwards. Like
absolutely. I remember. Yeah. I remember even, I think the day, like the next day, I'm like, are you okay? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And I know you kind of pulled back on communication, obviously for the reasons why they did. But like, I was like, what's going on? So now I want to hear what you actually found on the audio.
Stick around. We'll be right back. In the meantime, here's something pretty cool to check out.
Tarot time. If you're listening to this podcast, the divine messages are definitely for you. Let's combine science and magic, shall we? Root cause analysis, business planning, counseling, and good old-fashioned intuitive tarot readings, so we can improve your near future circumstances by addressing your present scenarios. Please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. For more in-depth tarot consultations, please book your readings at positivetarotwisdom.com. Infinite love and blessings for everyone.
Now, let's get back to the episode.
It's a lot of R-rated type stuff.
Yeah,
let's put it that way. So it was a lot of F you, F this. Let's go back. All right, so the main focus of this conversation that we were just talking about was the do you want to die?
Yep, I remember that.
Told you to come back to that. So and that's about, I would say 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through the session. It was near the end. And so I'm listening through this and I hear the do you want to die, which is an disembodied voice on my digital recorder. It's not like we heard it on stage or anything.
Right.
I hear it a couple of times and I hear something afterwards.
Okay.
And I'm it's like, man, it sounds different. It's not the same device. It was actually the spirit box in tandem. So you hear the do you want to die? And then coming through the spirit box, clear as day, it says David. And I didn't catch it that night, obviously, because what I said, there's not, you're trying to just get stuff quick. It's so you could use it for the next session. And I sit there and I'm listening. I listened to it a couple times just to make sure I heard what I heard. And then it all makes sense. It's like, yeah, it didn't want me there. It didn't like me. It wanted me to die, which would make complete sense to me why I ended up on that bridge. So it's just, it kind of blew my mind a bit. And I was like, man, this is a lot heavier than what I've ever dealt with before. Because I've been scratched before on an investigation.
I remember that too. Yep.
I've had a couple of things on different investigations that are, cold spots, cold chills and stuff like that. It's like, it's little stuff. It's not a big deal. But when you have something as significant as that, and then you start tying back the evidence of why it happened.
Yeah, putting together that timeline of what was said, how it was said, and your experiences.
Yeah. So I'm listening to this, and I think I let my wife listen to it, and she was
obviously
out. And
you're lucky she even lets you leave the house at all now. Well, after that.
Yeah, I know it was something. But I kept reassuring her, I'm fine now, because it stayed. Because I felt it lift. Again, when we were leaving the venue, I felt it lift, and then I launched into this.
But are you ever really fine? And I want to take that question, and if you've got something else to go to, we can get to that too. But like, obviously, it's no longer with you, but the experience is with you, and and that in itself, even if the energy is gone and all that is gone, that experience can shake the shit out of somebody's foundation.
Yeah. I mean, it shook me enough to where I have not investigated anything since.
Ugh. And I completely understand it. And for me, like on a very personal level and being very, not thought worthy of anybody else, like that upsets me because, again, I felt like you were really good at it because you and I kind of went at it in the same mindset. And so it upsets me that you haven't. But in the same respect, I completely understand.
Yeah. Well, and because of where I was at mentally with my trauma work and everything like that, again, going back to this trauma work, I've worked through all of that now, and I'm a little bit stronger. I'm in a better headspace than I was then. I'm still very cautious about even doing that, though, for the safety of myself and the safety of my family, because there's that element too. It's like, I got 2 kids, and they're young. And I don't want anything happening to them either. And my daughter is very much an empath. And so
are you too? Take a moment to think about that, because I think sometimes, especially people who deal with, mental issues and stuff like that. Sometimes you think it's just you, when there might be a little something else going on there too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a part of it that is that way. I know my wife is also empath. And I've been kind of doing some research. Well, not really research. I've been having some conversations with a bandmate of mine who's very much a spiritual healer type person. And he, we just had this conversation on Friday about, I'm trying to remember it all, but it related to being happy and instead of doing work and having to do certain things and not knowing what your happiness is.
Yeah.
And it all made sense to me this is what I've been dealing with the last couple of months of, going through this kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a piece of empath in there. You always give yourself to others more than you give to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's always been how I've lived my life too. I give more than I get. And
dude always gives the shirt off his back. I mean, that's just who David is.
Yeah.
And I got to say this because I know, Sandy, it was just connection, but how ironic that you leave during the possession story so that you don't have to hear me scold you about some of the stuff
I'm
you do.
sure I'll hear it down the road.
Oh, you will.
I'm sure I'll hear it down the road. I'm sure I will.
Here's the thing that, like, I appreciate the fact that you told that whole story. And again, what people have to understand is you didn't go into this investigation thinking you were going to leave that night having that experience, because you thought, I'm just going to go in, we're going to investigate, something will bump, we'll get some audio, maybe if we're really lucky there'll be a shadow figure or something like that. I mean, that was the mentality, and you walked out of there with a life-changing experience
that unfortunately has never been told until today.
Well, and I'm glad you told the story.
And like you said before, and I was ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I've been ready to talk about it for a long time. I just never got the opportunity to do so because of reasons.
Again, I'm glad we told the story. But for me, it was a life-changing experience too. And I'll explain why. Because, you go through the whole thing of watching these TV shows and stuff like that. We all had a favorite back in the day, right? We like certain ones. Yep. Some of them were a little bit more like the way we typically investigated. Some were more like, hey, you come out and show yourself, and all that kind of stuff. And what happened to you completely changed my perspective on investigating. And I'm glad that I've been able to evolve due to certain events in my life. What happened to you, my mother passing away, an energy that followed itself with me and I had to deal with for a while. I'm glad those things happened because it has made me realize that when I investigate, if I investigate, there's a reason behind it. I'm not going because I want to see if something happens anymore.
Yeah.
I want it really to be about telling the story that needs to be told from that location. So it really is from the highest point of respect that I now go and do stuff like that when I do that stuff. My interest in going and being scared and seeing something happen and hearing something happen is way less than it ever was before.
Yep.
Because of the experiences of my life and your experience is part of my life.
Yeah, and honestly, that's how this should go anyway.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to sensationalize what you're doing here just because you're on camera.
Right. It's not a game. It's not a game.
It's not a game. I'd rather have a boring night where nothing happens, and maybe get a piece, but then you also help somebody. Like I have friends that still do paranormal investigating. They do a lot more residential families type stuff.
Yep.
And to me, it's fascinating because one, you're going into somebody else's house and you're trying to help them, and they do, and it's amazing work. It's a lot different than what you and I did, and it's amazing work that they can do that. And what we were doing, it was different. It's just a different style, and I mean, ups and downs, did I agree with everything we did? No. Did I appreciate what we did? Yeah. I think it was important knowing how this project was going to go and what we were trying to achieve. For the time that I was with it, it was interesting. It was frustrating, and it had ups and downs, like I said. But it was interesting, and again, eye-opening. And I don't know, maybe I'll come back to it at some point. It would be a very select group and a very select situation.
Yeah. Well,
if I were to do that again, I would have to be surrounded by people that I would legitimately trust with my life.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way this is going to work for me, because I have almost lost that.
Absolutely. And the thing is that energy that you're hanging out with, those people that you're investigating with, that's your lifeline while you're there.
Yeah. You're right.
If they don't have your back, nobody's got your back.
Yeah. And it was that way with the group. It was, everybody was on a different kind of playing field as far as energy levels even.
Sure.
We had some high energy folks, or just, they were magnets for stuff. And then we had, lower energy type people
that help keep things
keep things leveled out, like you and I and a couple others. And so having that high energy person for me was, I think, a little bit more devastating to the whole situation. And it's just hard, it's hard because you don't know. We went into this completely blind as who was doing this anyway in energy levels, and we worked it out, and we became a family again. And I have all the respect in the world for everybody that I worked with. I think everybody brought something different to the table, and it was interesting, and I appreciate that time. But if I would do it again, I'd have to write the rules on it if I'm going to do it. I'm not guaranteeing that I will.
Well, if you ever do and you don't at least pick up the phone call and let me be a part of at least one investigation, I'll be ticked off at you.
Well, I know that. You're on that short list.
Okay,
Todd.
good.
Right.
I'm just making sure.
You're on that short list.
I can't pole dance, but damn it.
There we go. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
So
sorry to bring this down. It's not really a Sunday fun day.
It's okay. No.
It is. It's very educational, and did you take any steps, especially not knowing it was your first real investigation of anything of that sort? Did you take any steps of protecting yourself beforehand? Did you have any knowledge of protection beforehand?
I did have knowledge of protection. Because this was a couple years ago. So we had been working together for 5-6 years at that point. And so we had talked about different ways to protect yourself. Sure. And again, going back to what I was dealing with outside the paranormal world, where I was doing the trauma work and everything like that. Yeah, you would think about protections, but did you really protect yourself?
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that.
You can say, see, in my perspective, and I'm not focusing this on Sandy, but you can say all the prayers you want, you can carry all the stones you want and all that. But that can be your protection. But if you're open enough, nothing can protect you.
100,
right.
100% agree. And you have to go into it, I guess, sort of picking and choosing your battles and how you want to approach it. You know, everything is a learning experience. Some of it is a lot more fun learning than other parts of it, but it's all a learning experience. And again, you take a risk when you do any of this. It's not a game. It's a big deal. And one of my things is I am open. I am an empath, but I also have some other abilities. And one of the things that I look at it from my perspective is trying to help the energies and the spirits, because I think that not so much crossing over, but I think they have stories to tell. And I go into it with that thought process. It's not a game for me. It's very serious for me. When I travel to haunted cities, haunted places, I don't go on ghost hunts, general public ghost hunts, because those are thrill-seeking people. Those are people that don't perhaps know enough about it to understand. They haven't had those same experiences. So it's not a game. And I think protection and making smart choices do go hand in hand.
Yeah. Yep. And it definitely, the other thing is that because of my experience, and I talked about my experience after it happened, it became very controversial. So you have to be, that's another part of it, is you have to be willing to listen to and hear something like this experience. And when some people don't, it makes it hard to really explain it thoroughly as to what happened, because then they might go out and try to do the same thing and have a similar, if not worse, situation.
Yeah.
And so you have to mentally be prepared for anything in these situations. You have to be focused on what you're doing. If you're not there,
and listen to yourself. I mean, listen to yourself. If you would have listened to yourself after you came down from the balcony and said, you know what, I probably shouldn't do this. If you would have walked away at that point, that may never have happened to you. You know, like, be really in tune with yourself. If you're, and again, we've talked about this on the podcast, when you're doing a TV show or a movie, or you're doing it because you got to have the evidence. Sometimes you don't use the personal experience as part of your experience, because you got to have the video, you got to have the audio, you got to have the lights lighting up, got to have all that. And what you're experiencing doesn't necessarily matter to the production. So listen very intently to what you're going through, because it's real. It's real to you, and it can affect the outcome of how that investigation goes for yourself. So,
and in the end, it's a TV show, but that's your life, you know, and you really do have to learn about yourself. And as much as Todd teases me about the black mist, you know, it taught me that I have to step back, don't just act, think first. Is this going to be good for me? Is this something I want to do? Because in the moment, you just want to be able to move forward. You don't stop and think about it, but you should. You have to, you know?
Very much so.
So. Oh, the phone's ringing.
Let me get that real quick.
Ringing.
Just
okay.
Hello. Yeah. Oh yeah. She says she's learned her lesson about the black mist. Listen, I can only tell her how important it is to never do that again. Okay, thanks. That was actually that was the black mist on the phone. It said never walk through me again. Okay.
That's wonderful. Okay, thanks. Why do I love him? I don't know. Anyway,
David, thank you for being on with us and sharing this very. I mean, it's a dark story of your life. Part of your life.
Mental health. I'm a mental health advocate, and mental health is very important in all aspects of life. But if you're going to do something paranormal wise, have it together. Make sure your strength is there. Make sure your focus is there. I've gone in and out of depressive states for majority of my adulthood, and it's important to recognize when that happens and to heal when you need to heal and work on it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to talk about it either. And tell the people around you if you're having a situation, or if you're in a depressive state or an anxiety state even. Make sure they know that if you're doing a group investigation, definitely, but even in general life, tell the people around you what's going on, because again, a lot of this, Todd, you didn't know, and I kept it that way because I was not in a good state to begin with. And
dude, you should be an actor,
right?
Because I had no freaking clue.
You can two-face a lot of things, but don't be afraid to talk to somebody about it.
Communication.
Yep.
And if these are the people that you're going to take those risks with and investigate with and be with, they should know, at least to some extent, how everyone is doing.
Yep.
Because you're all there together. Yep. You're a group. You're one.
All right, David, we're going to put you off in the green room for a couple of seconds. You stay there. Thank you so much for your story.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Another episode in the book, Season 2, Episode 3, done and over with.
Unbelievable. My jaw got tired because I was dropping my jaw every, 3 minutes when he was telling us new parts of the story. And I can't even imagine being in his situation, Todd.
Well, and I told you this, and I've said it several times on our live cast and during the interview. I was there that night. I saw what was happening, but I didn't know what was happening because I myself had never experienced something like that. I didn't know David that well, but what I knew of him, he was just a level-headed, calm kind of guy. And to see him react that way, I never had all the answers. I knew after it happened, we were all kind of told, hey, something happened last night with David. It's not a great thing. But I never got the details of the story. So to be able to listen to his side and go, oh, I remember it from my standpoint, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's so important to be aware of your surroundings when you're investigating and aware of other people as well. And that's a lesson that most of us could learn who are in the paranormal investigating field, that you really have to be aware of yourself, of the people around you, and the environment in general. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's very, very necessary.
Thank you for listening to our audio cast. I invite you to binge listen to all of our other audio casts, however you get your podcasts. And make sure and like us and follow us on Facebook, too, for our live casts, because they're on not every, but typically you can find us on Tuesdays or Wednesdays and Thursdays and Sundays. We've got them planned up all for you. Great guests on the way. A lot of fun. Tarot, stories, twisted tales, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we have Thirsty Thursday. We run Thirsty Thursday, and that's so much fun. So be sure to check out our Facebook page. Join our group, the Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast. We're so excited. We have over 100 members now, and we all have fun. We share pictures, and we talk, and it, again, is a really safe forum and a great place for people to get together who share common interests.
Until the next Sandy and Toddcast audio cast. Bye.
Bye.
How many more miles left in this race? How long it takes, I don't know. In the end, it ain't